Welcome back to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with San Diego businesses and the key people that are working hard to make a difference in our community. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com.
Okay, we're back. We have our first guest with us, Mr. William Siegel.
Hey, you can call me Bill.
Bill. Okay, Bill. That's a whole lot easier since I can't say William anymore. But welcome. So tell us a little bit about Kleinfelder. What do you do?
Well, we're an employee-owned science, engineering, and architecture consulting firm. And so basically all the stuff that makes the country go, whether it's transportation, energy, water, all the basic infrastructure, we design it and make sure it gets built right.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about employee-owned. How long have you been employee-owned?
Well, technically since our founding 52 years ago. Jim Kleinfelder was a young engineer and saw a need and started his own business. And then as he got older, he had the opportunity to go public or sell the firm to somebody else. And instead, he decided to turn it over to his employees. So we've been basically an employee-owned company for about 27 years now. All of our employees, wherever they are in the world, are part of the Kleinfelder family.
So how many employees do you have nationwide?
We have about,
or worldwide?
Well, about 2,000 people around the world.
Wow.
U.S., North America is our biggest place, but we also are out in Australia in the Pacific Rim area.
Uh-huh. And you have about 200, I'll call them 200 owners locally.
Yeah, exactly. San Diego is corporate headquarters. Been here since the late 90s. We moved our headquarters here, so we're proud of being part of the San Diego business community. So this is also one of our larger offices with about 200 people here.
That's great. That's great. Tell me what kind of work do you do? I see some of the jobs you've worked on, but you do a lot of work on our infrastructure. So tell us about that.
Well, exactly. All the things, like I said before, that make the country work. So if you think about, whether it's the roads and bridges you drive on, or, the power that gets to your house, or the water systems, we work on that. So locally, if you look around, we're working right now on the initial design for the new light rail line that's going to go up to UCSD. So it's going to run from Old Town through the city up to UCSD. We're working on the new rental car facility, consolidated rental car facility at the airport. Yeah, now you won't have to go to all the different places. You go to just one place.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
I used to love it. If you fly into Las Vegas and you get a rental car, they have one facility for everything. And I always thought, why doesn't every city have that?
Yeah, so they're actually going that way. I get out a lot, obviously, because we have a lot of offices, and I would say most big cities are moving that direction with a consolidated facility. So San Diego will be right in there with all the other major cities in the U.S. once it's done.
Good.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
So that means that they have to keep the airport down there. They're putting so much money down there. There's no chance of them ever moving that airport.
Boy, that's a political one to wade into. Yeah. I don't know if you want me to wade into that. So the beauty is, as a user of the San Diego airport, I like the fact that it's convenient and close to town.
Absolutely.
And actually, what's really saving the current location is modernization of the airplanes, because now you're getting more long haul planes out of the San Diego airport. So you can go, I can go to London, I can go to Tokyo or whatever without having to connect to, say, Los Angeles. So with the exception of some really far-flung places, you can actually start going from San Diego direct, and that is helping that airport. When they were talking about trying to move the airport, it was a capacity issue, but it was also a size of plane issue, because you couldn't get the biggest planes in and out of San Diego, and now you're starting to get more of those long haul
So
planes.
we can get as I recall, it was the 747s couldn't land at Lindbergh Field.
Well, what have they done to make them land now?
Well,
what's changed?
You're still not going to get a 747, but like, for example, the new Boeing 787s have the capacity to go from San Diego to Heathrow in London. And so they can fly and leave San Diego and go there direct, whereas before you'd have to take a little hop up to LA or over to Phoenix and then connect the flight all the way over. So.
Yeah. But the seats are probably still going to be only big enough for a Shih Tzu. But that's not what you engineer. You don't engineer the planes.
Well, exactly.
When we have Boeing on, we'll bust them on that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or Airbus, whatever.
Right.
As someone who flies 150,000 plus miles a year, I can tell you they're not getting any bigger, the seats.
Right.
They're making them smaller and smaller every day. Yeah.
And you do travel all around. You were telling us before you go to China. You guys are worldwide, right?
Well, we are. We're proud to be part of San Diego and headquartered here, but we are growing globally, and so we've been fairly active in our growth plans. When I took over, I realized it was a global economy. And, quite frankly, we can do engineering from San Diego just as well as anybody else can, and we can work around the world from San Diego. So we wanted to move out that direction. So we started opening up in other countries and working on different projects and serving our existing U.S. clients anywhere around the world where they needed it. And that's been one of our big focus areas, and it's been a area of growth. For me as CEO, a lot of people wonder what the CEO does, and a lot of it is just going out there and seeing the people and showing the company flag and talking to our clients, talking to our employee owners, and letting them know what's going on in the firm and communicating. And that's a big chunk of the job.
Wow. So you're working on the trolley from Old Town to UCSD, the airport, and you mostly focus on refitting, not necessarily. Do you do a lot of new work, new construction, or is a lot of this the retrofit work?
Well, that's actually a really good question. We do both. And I would say that historically it's been more new construction, but there's a trend in America about reuse and refurbishment and rehabilitating old structures, and instead of building something new. So what you're seeing, for example, in the commercial market, there's a lot of big box stores out there already. Mm-hmm. And actually it's more cost effective a lot of times these days for a company that's moving in to take, say, an old, not pick on Office Depot, but they closed a bunch of stores. So they can move into an old Office Depot store, retrofit that store, and have it for their store rather than building a new big box somewhere else. It's an effective reuse. It's socially, smart, from a resources and a recycling perspective, and it's an opportunity to reuse something that's already there.
Yeah. A lot of people think of retrofits, though. They think of it in terms of retrofitting a bridge, maybe in order to make sure that it's up to, to handle natural disasters. What's the level of involvement?
Well, that's another great question, because we have one of our specialties is seismic engineering, which is obviously a big deal here in California. Mm-hmm. So part of it is retrofitting so that, using new technology so that we can make sure that the bridges stay up during a seismic event or buildings stay up during a seismic event. And sometimes when you're reusing an old building, it was built under different codes and different standards. And so again, if you're going to reuse that big box store, you probably want to go in before you retrofit it to make sure that the walls are strong enough to withstand our modern understanding of earthquakes. Every time there's a new earthquake, engineers study the heck out of it, try to figure out how the ground moved, how the buildings reacted, and then we come up with new codes and new ideas. And so we're always making it better, making it safer. And whenever you rebuild something, it's a chance to make that incremental improvement.
Right.
Yeah. I'm glad we got guys like Bill out here, because my job when an earthquake comes is to find the next wine spritzer. But that's no point.
Exactly.
That can be an actually critical move to make at a time of a natural disaster.
Yeah, with having been in seismic safety, manufacturer and making products, anything new coming out in seismic safety on the construction side?
Well, I think it depends on the kind of building. Certainly for high rise, the whole concept of putting them on floating foundations. Yeah. So literally the ground moves and the building doesn't. Did you? Okay, that's great. That was a tremendous development, and that continues to get better and better as they come up with new systems for that. Certainly our understanding of how the ground moves during earthquakes is getting a lot better. And people think all earthquakes are the same, but they're actually not. Some have more up and down movement, some have more lateral movement, and those create different stresses on the building. So the codes are constantly being updated to represent that new understanding of how earthquakes work.
Any new materials coming out with carbon fibers and different polymers now that are coming out?
Yeah. In fact, you see that on a lot of the bridges. In fact, I know they have done it before on the bridge, the Carrillo Bridge there in Balboa Park, where they literally go and they wrap the old foundations with a material, then they put a concrete. You're smiling like you obviously know about that, because that's just a way of taking the existing column without rebuilding the whole bridge and making it stronger. And so it changes the way that column would work in a seismic event. And so that's one of the things that's come out.
Yeah.
We actually came up with a very innovative, we called it a bridge in a backpack. If you think of bridges that are these big, concrete structures, we actually came up with a carbon fiber tube that you could literally carry on your backs to a remote site and then fill it with concrete. And the carbon fiber around the outside acted structurally the same way that reinforcing steel would if it was on the inside. But you could basically build a bridge in a third of the time with a third of the materials needed. So it was environmentally sensitive and also quicker to get built. And we worked with
maybe
the university.
Even more cost effective as well.
It was totally cost effective.
Yeah.
So it's,
I know in California we have a big retrofitting issue going on.
Huge.
With bridges primarily because of public transportation, but also in buildings.
Well, it's certainly on the bridge side. Across America, they estimate that half the bridges are structurally deficient some way. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to fall down tomorrow, but that means that if you were to rebuild that bridge today, you'd build it better and bigger and stronger, and that those bridges aren't capable of carrying their original load. And so that's quite frankly, in my opinion, a national crisis. But
You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-hosts Andrea Kay and Urban Miaris, and our guest, Bill Siegel from Kleinfelder. So
That's a really scary topic, talking about these bridges and earthquakes. I mean, I just have this vision in my head after the last one in San Francisco in the 90s to where there was that double-decker bridge and it collapsed. I mean, you guys are really kind of unsung heroes, because you really save lives when you build it, make sure a structure is built for
we just
people
don't know the
to
lives
make it safe.
That's what I keep telling everybody.
Yeah.
But it's,
You know what I mean?
No, it is true. I tell our people in our firm that we're in a very honorable profession because, we really do save lives, but we don't get all the public credit for it. And, I think it's just part of what we expect as Americans. I think that our quality of life is built around a good infrastructure. We want the bridges to stand up, the roads to work. When we turn on a switch, we want the power to come on. We want fresh water to come out of the tap. We want sewage to go away. All the basics that make our life really, you think about it, but it makes our life very comfortable and easy. It's a quality of life issue, and we have the best infrastructure by far in the world, and I'd like to keep it that way. And I'm certainly concerned we're not spending enough on it, and I think that if we don't start spending a little more on some of this aging infrastructure in America, we're going to find that we're either going to have, to accept a lower quality life, or we'll have even bigger bills down the road when we get around to repairing things.
Are there lobbying groups for companies like yourself to go to Washington and say, hey, we really need to put a little focus on this?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on it. We belong to a variety of industry groups, whether it's the American Council of Engineering Companies or this construction industry roundtable group we belong to, and we're constantly in Washington, D.C., basically arguing. But it's sort of a tough sell because if you go in front of an elected official, you would have people, arguing for, homeless help or more police and fire department or all the other very worthwhile things that we spend our tax money on, and then we're in there arguing for a bridge. And
right.
Sometimes that gets sort of lost in the shuffle compared to the more
until they see a bridge
appeals.
Collapsed, and then they go, you know what, hey, maybe we should have listened to that Bill guy who was here a couple
exactly.
years ago.
Yeah, but it's a challenge we have, and certainly there's more and more demands on the public purse than there ever has been before. So it's certainly a challenge. I think there is a trend in America going to more pay as you go on things like transportation, where there's more toll roads and more taxes associated with the users, just because the general funds aren't there. So I think a trend you're going to see is more toll roads, more user fees, more things directed at the people that are actually driving on the bridges. And
California's been avoided the toll roads for a long time. Now they're finally getting into it, the fast track systems, what have you.
Exactly. You go back east, you see them all over the place, and it's sort of confusing because they're all different entities. You have different transponders, but
well, fortunately, it's a transponder-based system now. When it used to be, you have to carry a stack of quarters with you and throw them in the basket all the time. So
yeah, exactly.
Hey, we are starting to run short on time, so let's tell our listeners if anybody wants to find out more about Kleinfelter, how do they find out about you?
Well, the best thing is if you just go to www.kleinfelter.com, you'll see all kinds of stuff. We've actually built a fairly robust portal for people to come in and see about the kind of projects we work on and the things we do in society. And you can see not just our projects, but also, our commitment to corporate social responsibility, employment opportunities, what we do in our local communities. It's all on there. And if you even go to YouTube, we talked about that. You can, if you just Google Kleinfelter, you'll see actual great video of some of our projects, and especially if you like to see, landslides and earth movements and the projects we've been working on, if you go to YouTube, you'll see some interesting videos on there.
That's great. That's great. I think
that's interesting.
I got a couple things I want to do with some of that, so I will talk to you about that off air. Appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you building 200 local business owners here in San Diego.
Well,
so,
thanks.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here today, and we're glad to be part of the local business community.
Great. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are working hard to make a difference in our community. This is financialnewstalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after the break with more homegrown business Close Up, and we will have BJ Care from Solar Rain.